Hi, everyone. Hello, welcome. Welcome to our live Q&A. I'm not at the office right now. I had to get home and get dinner for the kids, but I'm live from my basement today and with a very old webcam. So hopefully this works out well. I'm going to start us off just by reading our human rights statement and our FNMI statement, as this is ETFO event from the local. The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario is committed to providing an environment for members that is free from harassment and discrimination at all provincial or local federation-sponsored activities, fostering the goodwill and trust necessary to protect the rights of all individuals within the organization, neither tolerating nor condoning behavior that undermines the dignity or self-esteem of individuals or integrity of relationships, and promoting mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation as the basis of interaction among all members. Harassment, discrimination on the basis of a prohibited ground are violations of the Ontario Human Rights Code and are illegal. The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario will not tolerate any form of harassment or discrimination as defined by the Ontario Human Rights Code at provincial or local federation-sponsored activities. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario acknowledges that we are gathered here today on the customary and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral peoples, Miigwech, and thank you. So we haven't done this for a while. It's been very busy for a lot of people since school was out. The summer, it seems to be the summer that never was, and the March break that never ended. I'd like to thank Amy Filsinger, who basically set up all of this event tonight. Amy Filsinger is Communications Officer for the Waterloo local. She's also a part-time contract teacher, part-time vocational teacher. She set up the Slido program that we were able to submit questions and you could upvote them ahead of time. She also created this live event and had it all ready to go. She's moderating the chat tonight, so if you do have any questions, she'll try to answer questions on the live chat while we do some of the pre-submitted questions, and then at the end, if we have some time, we'll go back to the live chat and see if there's any more live questions. Before I begin answering some of the pre-submitted questions, I just want to thank you all for your emails throughout this time. It's been a lot of work, but this is the only way that the local finds out what the issues are and what the current concerns are. Communication has been very, very challenging, not just from the board to the employers, but the board to the local. And we find out a lot of things actually through the membership. And you know, we've been peppering the board for trying to get answers on a lot of this, but the turnaround time has just been really challenging. I do recognize that they're in a challenging spot, so and they're doing the best they can. This seems to be the new reality, and we're trying to navigate it as best as possible, but we do only know the concerns if you raise them with the local. There are some things that have been violating the collective agreement. On those issues that we are filing grievances, things like the blended learning that our LTOs are facing when students are away. There's some unreasonable expectations where they continue into distance learning for those students, and it's just impossible to put into place, as well as some class size issues with our kindergarten distance learning classrooms, and as well as expectations for the distance learning program. So we are working within our collective agreement to file grievances. There are challenges though, because some of this stuff has never been contemplated. We never had distance learning before, so some things are absent in our collective agreement, and through that it's a little bit more challenging to enforce, but we're doing the best we can. There's tons of work out there for vocational teachers. I'm encouraging everyone to pick up the jobs that they can, but I am asking you to be safe, you know, and be conscientious of your COVID training, and be safe out there. Anyways, we're going to get started. I do have a list. So again, thanks to Amy for making this Slido, which is, I think last week we sent out a link that allowed you to click and submit questions, and you could upvote different questions. They've been collated now into different categories, and we'll go through them now. So the first category that we have is general OT work questions, and I believe these are specific to all occasional teachers, but sometimes daily occasional teachers as well. So the first question is, does every school provide a key badge for OTs? Is it required for OTs? And I think this is about the key fob. You should have the ability to do two things: lock the classroom door and unlock the classroom door, enter the school. You never know what your day consists of, especially right now with the expectation. A lot of classrooms are doing outside learning. You need to be able to safely enter the school. You should be getting a classroom key. You should be getting a fob, a swipe card to get into that. If you're not, let the school know that they have an obligation. You need to let us know the school that's not providing it, and we'll resolve it. I've talked to the board about this. They agree. Their expectation is that those be provided as well. So it's not a surprise, and it will get taken care of. You just need to let us know. It might not be taken care of that day, but it will be resolved for the future. Can a person become an occasional teacher for both the elementary and the secondary list with the WRDSB? There's enough work right now for both those panels, but unfortunately, no. The board only allows you to be employed by either the elementary or the secondary panel. There are some members that have been grandparented in from years ago where they did allow that, but you can only be employed by one panel or the other. Recently, this next question says, hi, this is not COVID related, but I've received a couple emails about staff voicemails. Do OTs have a voicemail account? They do. Actually, all employees, if you read, there was an all employee notice. All employees have a voicemail account with the school board. I've been an occasional teacher now for 9 years. I have never received a message to my occasional teacher voicemail. However, it does exist. It's more likely that while you are in an LTO, you may receive a call from a parent that may leave a message, but realistically, it's an outdated practice. It still exists, but use your email. Clarification on eligible days to apply to the LTO list. Does the 20 OT days mean full days, or would 0.5 OT days count as one? To apply to the LTO list, we expect the LTO list to open again in November. It's opened every year for the last 6 years now. That is the expectation. You need to do at least 20 days in 1 year within the last 5 years. So even if you didn't do one 2 years ago, 3 years ago, sometime in the last 5 years, you only have to do 20 days, but they are a total of 20 full days. So half day counts as a half day, and it has to add to 20. So get your days in. You need at least 20 in a school year within the last 5 years to apply to that LTO list. It's definitely possible. There's lots of work out there. Okay, our next section is about COVID-19 and daily occasional teacher work. It has been a little bit wild. We were successful in pressuring the board to ensure that they provide replacement coverage for those distance learning teachers. But you always have to be careful what you ask for because what they've put in place is a little different than what was envisioned, but it is work and it is available. So the feedback is many schools are inconsistent with the way that COVID protocols are followed. How can occasional teachers, LTOs, ensure they're following proper board guidelines? So we continue to provide feedback to schools when schools are not following the appropriate COVID protocols. Let us know. We can pass along that information. Daily OTs are in unique positions that we actually see the differences in the schools and how it's being implemented. So we have to take that with some grain of salt because we are hyper aware of the differences in the schools. But that being said, if they are extreme, let us know and we'll try to try to correct it as best as we can through letting the board know. But realistically, the board COVID training protocol should be applied in conjunction with the site-specific protocols. Things like, how the kids line up, how they move through the school, things that are relevant to the site might be a little bit different, but the overall COVID protocols should be the same. And if you're finding they're not, let us know, and we'll let the board know that that school is kind of on the outwings. Next question, I think I just answered it, but why are there so many inconsistencies between schools with COVID protocols? And it comes down to just the administrators and how they're interpreting what's to put in place, might be with resources that they have. And it's just information. People are reading things differently. This is brand new stuff. A lot of schools, it's been a month now, a lot of schools are looking at it in a different lens. And it's not until the board knows that there's inconsistencies that they can resolve it. So let the local know if it's a big concern or you think it is, and we can at least let the board know, and they can determine if it's a problem. Next question, why are some schools providing gloves for use with the disinfectant and others saying they're not needed? So this is interesting. The WMIS sheet on the disinfectant does talk about recommending to use gloves. It is a pretty standard. I don't want to say household disinfectant, because it is meant for this commercial use, but it is relatively similar to any other disinfectant you're using. You should be spraying it on yourself, but it's not dangerous if you do get it on your hands. You wash it off. If you want to use gloves, they should be provided though, and you can get them from the office or find them somewhere in the school if they're not immediately available. But that's why there's some challenges or some confusion about the spray. The gloves are not required, but if you want to use them, you're more than able to find them, and you should be able to get them if you demand them. Next category is getting information and materials from schools. As I said before, communication has been very, very challenging through all of this. It seems to be almost a system of broken telephone. Even ourselves in the local have been peppering the board for information, but I mean, honestly, it's almost as if the plane is getting built as it's getting flown down in the sky, down the runway. It's been very challenging. So one of the questions I have here is, can ETFO, the local, push admins to get their school's COVID protocols sent ahead? So this is for daily occasional teachers. I think they're talking about the site-specific protocols. We did ask about having these posted or having these sent ahead. The concern from the board was that the site-specific protocols are internal documents, and they want to keep them internal to the school. The expectation is that daily occasional teachers arrive in a sufficient time to review those site-specific protocols so that they're aware and ready for the day. The good news is if you're returning to a school that you've been to before, it's a lot quicker to refresh your memory. But the expectation is that you should not be needing to review those the night before. You arrive with enough time to look at those on the day of the job. How can we go about getting goggles instead of the shield that classroom teachers are getting? If we can't, why are we being treated differently? Well, you can. There was a big push about the shields with the quality. They were fogging up. The sponges were falling off them. The mats or the pads. People were getting headaches. The board listened to the feedback and have been transitioning to goggles. But you can understand switching from all these face shields to goggles, it's a supply issue. They have assured us that the transition is taking place, but it is taking time to filter down. Some schools, they haven't transitioned yet. Some schools have, and occasional teachers will be part of that transition. If you are at the point where it's a significant medical issue, or you're having a really significant problem with those face shields and you can't wait for that transition period, you can send a message to wellness and let them know that the PPE that is provided is not working for you, and maybe they can issue one ahead of time. But realistically, they're going to be moving that out as soon as they can, because they do understand the concerns with those quality of those face shields. Duty vests. Is it possible for OTs to get their own duty vests rather than having to wear the absent teacher's duty vests? There should be no question with wearing the duty vest, as long as appropriate procedures are followed. Wash your hands after using. If you want to invest in your own duty vest, you can. The board will not be reimbursing you for it. But I do know lots of vocational teachers that did have their own duty vests just because it made life easier. But I'm not recommending anyone go and buy their own duty vest. In the COVID training, it mentioned the importance of not sharing supplies with other teachers. Would it be possible for OTs to get their own Chromebook? Again, this is something that we will be pushing for and have been pushing for before the pandemic. If the expectation is that the board employees be using these Chromebooks, they should be providing them. Right now, anyone in a classroom teacher or an LTO is provided the Chromebook. We haven't been successful for getting them to daily OTs. The challenge is that not all daily occasional teachers work every single day. Some are truly, truly casual and may only do 10, 15 days a year. And the board understandably doesn't want to make that investment for all employees. But as we move to a world where it's needed and demanded, I think there is a case to be made. But at this point, there is no funding for Chromebooks for daily occasional teachers. But we will continue to push and make it an issue that tools and resources are available. Right now, though, you should be able to, anytime you pick up a job, there needs to be the resources that are available. Follow the proper cleaning protocols, and you will be safe and you will be fine. I have a question about drills and safety. So with the COVID protocols, they may conflict with hold and secure, lockdown, or fire drill protocols. What do we do? So for example, COVID protocols talk about windows and doors being open, airflow, that kind of stuff. Hold and secure, lockdown is the opposite. So obviously, hold and secure, lockdown, fire drill, those protocols will trump the COVID protocols in an emergency situation. That's just the reality of it. It's a temporary emergency. You'll have to follow those protocols. And then when the emergency or the drill's over, you'll return to your COVID protocols. But there's levels of emergencies and levels of safety. And those levels of emergencies are take more precedent than the COVID protocols. So our next category, we have some questions about LTOs from our members who are currently in LTOs, either distance ed or in classroom. And the question is in terms of extension. LTOs, if my LTO gets extended, will my sick leave be cumulative or reset proportional to each extension? So when you're in an LTO, you have access to 11, if it's a full year, full-time LTO, 11 sick days at 100%. And 120 days at 90%. Those days are prorated based on the size of the LTO as well as the length. So if you're in a 0.5 LTO, you have half the amount of full day ones, or the same amount and they're half as long. If the LTO goes to the end middle of the winter, if it's half length, then you would have half as many. There's no reset. You keep gathering more as that LTO is extended. So if you ever want to find out exactly how many you should have, the board is slow in allocating them. But if you go into your self-service portal, you should see your sick day allocation in the self-service portal. It's the same spot you can find your pay stubs. Question about, if my job extended, how should I know? There should be a conversation. Your job shouldn't be extended without a conversation between you and your administrator. If there isn't, I would have that conversation with your administrator. You have no obligation to accept an extension. You've made a commitment to the the job that was posted. So for example, these LTOs that are going till November 9th, they are posted till November 9th. That is the commitment you have made. Is there a possibility that it's extended? Any LTO can be extended, but they need to let you know that they'd like to extend it. The other side of it is if LTO is ending early, they need to give you 2 weeks notice. That is in our collective agreement, and that is the expectation. And an LTO can be ended early. This is a little new world in the distance learning where you're not replacing anyone, but in a traditional sense, LTO is usually only ended because the teacher is returning. Prep periods. We're in a world of fail to fill. This message has not changed. Daily OTs, you should not be giving up your prep. There will be emergencies. They have an obligation to approach first LTOs and permanent teachers if there's a fail to fill, because those people can get their preps paid back. I'm hearing a report that that is getting very, very challenging to get preps paid back, and people are going to be building them up. We will cross that bridge when we get to it if they're unable to pay back those preps. If you're a daily OT and you lose your prep, let me know. Send me the job number, the prep period you lost, the time, the date. I will send it off to the board once I collect a bunch, and we'll attempt to have those paid out. We're in bargaining now, and this is a priority for us to develop a system so that daily OTs do not lose their prep, and if they are, then they get paid out for that lost time. We have a question about blended learning and technology. For those that don't know, the board has been talking about 3 types of learning: in class, distance ed, and this blended learning where it's kids are in class, but they may be at home all the time. The board calls this blended learning. For how long will teachers be expected to be doing blended learning with students in person and those at home waiting to get into distance learning? So this, as I said earlier, is a grievance that has been filed. The union thinks it's unreasonable to ask in-class teachers to also be doing distance ed learning. It's simply too much. It's impossible. And unfortunately, the employer is demanding it at this time. You have no recourse other than to say, you're performing the duties under protest, and we will try to resolve the issue through the grievance process. I have a next question here I wasn't able to answer. It says, how are teachers expected to keep a Google Classroom running and regularly updated when they do not have access to classroom technology for students? I wasn't quite sure what the question was asking. If the question is that the students themselves don't have technology, then you won't be able to. If the question is if the teachers themselves don't have access to technology, you should. Anything that the computers, the resources you need should be made available. If I'm not understanding the question, reach out to me and let me know to clarify, and I'll answer you another time. We have some questions about the reorganization that's coming up. So this person is I am an in-person LTO. Can I be moved to teach different subjects or to teach distance learning because of the upcoming reorganization? So when you're in an LTO, you are not in the position because it's your position. You are replacing the teacher because they are away for some reason. And it is very possible that that teacher, even though they're on leave, could get reassigned to a different classroom, to a different grade, to distance learning, and you follow the teacher. You have their qualifications, hopefully, most likely because you've accepted their position. If not, we'll cross that bridge as well. But yes, you can get reassigned. Now, you could deny the LTO or leave the LTO, but there wouldn't be another option available. If that teacher is reassigned, you're replacing the teacher, then that's your reassignment as well. When will we get class lists for this new reorganization? The board, I asked the board and they said when they're ready. Joking aside, they'll put it out as soon as they can. We put pressure on them to get the information so that our members are prepared as much as possible. But as you can understand, parents and students are making last-minute decisions, and changes are being made. And it's a monster task to set up this distance learning. So we'll keep pushing for that information, but it'll be ready when it's ready. And the last question is regards to distance learning. If they need to hire additional distance learning teachers, can part-time LTOs apply and split the assignment with another part-time LTO? We did ask about small distant learning positions. It's the board's prerogative to post those positions how they'd like to, and what they've decided to do is post them as full-time positions. That's easiest for them. It creates a most desirable job for our members. If those jobs are going unapplied, we can approach the employer and say, you might have better luck by chopping them up. But at this time, they're going to continue posting them as 1.0s. And if you're in a part-time LTO, you'll need to find another part-time LTO that works with your schedule, or do some daily occasional teaching to top yourself up. So that is the list of the pre-arranged questions, the pre-submitted question. I apologize, I haven't been able to read the chat as I was rambling on there, but I think I see Amy was answering lots of questions. So I'm going to look for direction from the chat. Amy, if you're there, do you have any other items that we need to address? Is there I see lots of questions here for you, Nathan. So I'm going to scan down and we'll see if some things have been answered, and if not. So Trish Morgan says, I hear a rumor that the 50-day limit for retired teachers may be changing. That is a request that has come from the school boards to the Ontario Teachers Federation. The Ontario Teachers Federation, for those that don't know, retired teachers can work up to 50 days. They can work more days, of course, but without affecting their pension. There's been a request by the school boards to waive that limit for retired teachers for this year. The OTF executive determined not to allow that to happen at this time. It's very early in the year, and the 50-day limit, should it get reached, they may, if many retired occasional teachers are reaching that 50-day limit, then it may be reevaluated. But right now, there was no interest in from the Ontario Teachers Federation to increase that limit. It was felt that the only reason that the boards were asking for it was for principals and administrators to come back to be able to take a pension as well as work. So that there's been no change for that at this time, but it may change later on. It looks like there's a question about plans, and it's been answered. Plans are supposed to be left for OTs. Yes, leave plans for occasional teachers. We are occasional teachers, so we expect plans to be left for us. If you are away, you need to leave plans. That has never changed. I was told by a teacher that ETFO did not expect teachers to plan for consecutive days off due to COVID. The permanent teacher local has been telling their teachers not to leave plans. I do not know why they take this position. But if our expectation is that there are plans available for daily OTs, if teachers are not leaving them, then it is the school board's responsibility to provide plans, or the administrator's job to provide plans. If the administrator doesn't want to ensure that their teachers are leaving plans, then they need to find a different way to provide it. If you are a daily occasional teacher and you are being paid the daily rate, you have no obligation to plan. If your position is a multiple day position that is looking to turn into an LTO, meaning it's going to be more than 10 days, there is a possibility or an expectation to some degree that you will be back paid at grid rate for those days that you were planning. That is a different situation. But if you arrive into a classroom as a daily occasional teacher for an assignment, and there is no expectation that it is going to extend to 10 or 11 days, then you should not be planning for that job, and you should be having plans provided for you. What is the protocol in providing blended learners work online? The administrators are giving expectations. We've put out a message through the local that we do not agree with the expectations for blended learning. If you're a classroom teacher, our expectation is that you're teaching in class. If the students are away, they do not go into distance learning that you are teaching. That being said, your employer has requested it. Ask them to put the demands in writing and explain that you will be doing it under protest, and we filed a grievance on it locally through the permanent teachers and our own office, and it will get resolved. But until then, the employer does have the right to ask for it, and just make sure those expectations are in writing, and inform them that you'll be doing it under protest. Hiring situation for the occasional teacher list. We have no say in how the hiring is done for occasional teachers, for the roster of occasional teachers. The only piece about the hiring process that we have in our collective agreement is a cap. That cap has not been enforced since about 2014. The board has been under the cap for the last 6-7 years, and as such, they can hire all and anyone to the occasional teaching roster as long as they are a qualified teacher and meet those expectations. We actually have been encouraging them to hire more because of the fail to fill situation. That being said, it has the hiring. We have no ability to influence the hiring of occasional teachers, nor do we influence the process. But we are encouraging them to hire more because there's more work than there are people right now. The face shields only have to be worn in shared spaces, i.e. supervision hallways, and when physical distancing cannot be maintained, correct? I don't believe that is correct. It's my understanding that the face shields and the masks are to be worn unless you are basically on your own without any interaction. I have heard reports that different schools are putting in place different expectations. If that school has site-specific expectations, you should be following those site-specific expectations. If you think they're wrong or if they need to be addressed, you can let us know, or you can even ask the admin and clarify what the expectations are for that site. Question about days off for LTOs. If teachers are off waiting for a COVID test for consecutive days, do they not need to leave OT plans? Yes, leave plans for occasional teachers. You're getting paid. You are occasional teachers. You would never expect to go into a classroom and not have plans. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. You are occasional teachers and you want plans, so leave plans. Question, why are some jobs posted as multi-day absences and some where the teacher is away for multiple days in a row posted as individual days? That's a really good question, and I believe each answer is going to be very different because a job could be posted two ways. Either the principal themselves could be posting the job or the teacher could be posting the job. Most likely, if regardless who's posting it, if they know they're going to be away, they're going to post the job as a multiple day assignment because they're more likely to get the same occasional teacher to pick up that job. Why could a job be posted with a different job each day? Someone goes home sick, they're hoping to be back the next day. They are not ready to come back, so they have to post it again. And that's the reality sometimes is they just never know how long to post the job for. There's always solutions to this. Sometimes the teacher will contact the principal and say, listen, I need another day. Can you talk to the occasional teacher that's there so I don't need to post it? I can just put them in. But there is multiple ways that a job can be posted. And unfortunately, that does create multiple ways for coverage to be provided. So I do hear that concern, and I agree. I think it would be better if there was more consistent ways for the jobs to be put out. And but unfortunately, the replacement of a teacher is sporadic and casual in nature, and sometimes a teacher doesn't know if they're going to be away another day. It's the reality of our job. What is the appropriate protocol for no teacher present? Should plans be provided by the school board? I'm not too sure what you mean by no teacher present. Jamie, could you clarify what you mean by no teacher present? Also, how are assignments offers matched with OTs? Does everyone receive the same offers? No, everyone does not receive the same offers. You have the ability to go into your profile and select preferences. So you can put in schools that you will work at, schools you won't work at. You can set your preferences based on qualification. The board, from the board's end, it is a random call-out system, but they will call qualified candidates before unqualified candidates. So for example, if it is a French job, the system will call people who are French qualified occasional teachers, and they'll run through that list before the system calls non-qualified people. So if you do have a qualification, you are more likely to get those types of jobs because the system will give you preference for them. But that being said, there's so many jobs right now that it's most likely just calling through the list as quick as possible to find anybody at this system. But there are ways to set up your own preferences, and the system does do preference by qualification. How do we pick up daily occasional teaching distance learning assignments if we don't have training how to use the platforms? So there is no paid training available. The board has released 2 videos on how to use Google Classroom or how to use the Bright Learning Bright Classroom. I put it out in the newsletter, I think, on Friday. Those videos, you can take a look at them. And if you feel comfortable doing a distance learning classroom, all the power to you. Equate it to any other classroom that you feel comfortable with. We have lots of occasional teachers that would never step into a phys ed job because they don't teach phys ed. We have lots that will do grade 7, 8, but will never do a kindergarten classroom because they simply don't feel like they know enough about that grade or that level to do so. If you feel comfortable doing distance ed, distance learning, pick it up. If you want to learn, there are some training videos that are available on the WRDSB site. I post them to Facebook and through the newsletter. Check them out. We were successful in encouraging the board to ensure that those jobs are labeled with the flag, so you should know if it's a distance learning job. That being said, there are jobs all over the place. So if you don't want to do distance learning jobs, I know that there's lots of in-class learning jobs available. Brightspace, thank you. I was thinking Eventbrite, but that was our system we use for booking. Means jobs that come up as no teacher absent. Usually those are prep payback. Yes, Cody, thank you. So yes, a no teacher absent is usually a prep payback job, or it might be a situation where the school has extra time that they can bring in a supply teacher and use them for. In those situations, I kind of forget the question now, the appropriate protocol. Should plans be provided by the school board? Yeah, if you're going into a situation where you're providing prep payback, or you're going into those days, they're tricky days because you might not have a prep period yourself. Sometimes admin will give you one off, but realistically, you could be doing back-to-back-to-back classrooms because you will not have any supervision or duty on those days, because you're not replacing a teacher. In a prep payback situation and no employee replacement, in theory, you should have no duties or supervision because you're not replacing a teacher. All the teachers are there. Now, set aside emergency situations. So you would be just going into a classroom and saying, okay, I'm paying you back prep. Here's your half an hour off. What do you want me to do? And if the teacher tells you, I have nothing planned, you figure it out, then I guess they're reading books for, for that half an hour, or some other activity that you pull out. But realistically, no, you're not. You should be making it up on the spot. They should be. You should know what you're doing. I don't know how you would plan for that day. It'd be impossible. It'd be impossible to plan spur of the moment. I don't know where that expectation would come from. Are there restrictions on accepting 2 half days at different schools with the current situation? No, there's no restrictions. It's the same process. If you can make it to 2 schools, all the power to you. If there's an overlap, call the other school, let them know that you've accepted this job. You're doing them a favor. There's fail-to-fails all over the place. The principal does have the right to say, listen, if you can't be here on the time, they'll cancel you out. But most likely, 90% of the principals will say, great, I'm so glad you picked up that job. I know it's going to take you 5-10 minutes to get across town. I'll cover it until you get here. So that's not a problem. Trish Morgan, right now I see 78 jobs posted for tomorrow. How is this sustainable? Is there a threshold for shutdown? It's unsustainable. I have no idea how the system is working right now. I expect it. I mean, I don't want to be pessimistic, but it's not sustainable. There's going to be teachers that will not have any prep because they're all going to be collapsed classrooms. There will be classrooms with no teachers in them. I have no idea how the system is sustainable. We're doing the best we can. Occasional teachers are doing the best we can, but could this whole thing collapse? Absolutely. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, I have no idea how this is working. Sorry, Trish, I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, I've never seen 78 jobs posted for sitting there. Usually we're fighting for jobs. So this is it's an unbelievable situation. It's sigh indeed. It's very, very stressful for a lot of people. Oh, is your class is in isolation? How does that impact sick days? If your class is in isolation, I would expect that you are in isolation as well, which means if the whole class is in isolation and you're in isolation, then you have transitioned to some type of, I don't want to call it distance learning, but some type of Google Classroom that you've already set up so that learning can continue. Hopefully, you're not sick. If you're sick, then you're using sick days. If not, then the class is now being taught in the virtual environment, and it's no different than when March break, when the whole system was shut down. This is a temporary situation. You will all move to that online environment for, I think it's 14 days while the classroom is isolated, and you'll come back and get back to the new normal. But that's what the expectation is. If you yourself are being isolated as an occasional teacher. If you are sick, then it is sick days. If the test comes back negative and you are no longer sick, you have no symptoms, but you're being told by public health to stay home, you're being told to quarantine, you're being told to isolate. Those should be submitted as quarantine days. They're called Q100. You don't have the ability to submit those days. Contact your middle manager, your principal, and say, listen, I'm no longer sick. I'm ready to come back. They'll say you can't come back, and then that means that you're under quarantine or isolation. They're no longer out of your sick bank, and they will be labeled as quarantines. What if some get tested and some don't? We have no ability to, I guess, police the testings of the students. I think they have. It's expected that they come back with a negative test, no symptoms. If the students don't come back, I guess that's where your question is. If students are off and the teacher's back, our expectation from a union has been this blended learning where you should not be providing distance learning at the same time that you're in class with the kids. That should not be happening. The board wants it to happen. Right now, we are not agreeing on this. So the answer to your admin is to say, please give me the expectations in writing. They'll give you the expectations in writing. You say, I will be doing this under protest. ETFO has filed a grievance on this issue, and do the best you can. It's very, very tricky. There's no easy solution. The permanent teachers are going through the exact same thing. The permanent teacher local is giving the same message. It's impossible to do, and they're asking the impossible. You cannot teach a class in class and do distance learning at the same time. I was just talking with OSSTF President Rob Gasho. Their teachers are actually given a period to try to do at-home distance ed in conjunction with their classroom teaching, and they can't manage it. So I don't know how we would ever find time to do distance education as well as in-class learning. It is the most bizarre expectation I've ever heard of, and that's why there's a grievance filed. Thanks, Melanie. I appreciate it. I'm trying not to come back overwhelmed, but this has been an overwhelming period for a lot of our members. For you, it's been overwhelming for me, and the ministry doesn't seem to be making it any easier with what they're coming out with. The board, I respect that they're in a hard place. They're in a rock and a hard place right now, but they need to understand there needs to be some reality here, some real expectations, because we have occasional teachers that are doing LTOs for kindergarten with 30 kids, and they're expected to do synchronous learning with 30 students, and they don't have a DECE because there's not enough DECEs, and they're still putting all these demands on them. I mean, let's get real, folks. It's the system was never prepared for this. Our board dragged their heels. This is being recorded, so I probably shouldn't say too much like that, but the system was never prepared for this, and teachers are doing the best they can, and you are doing the best you can, so we will get through it. And if some things fall through the crack, that's the reality. I couldn't imagine a discipline meeting where a principal has said that a teacher has not done enough during this time. I just couldn't imagine it. Yeah, I'd love to put Lee Chan Ford in those kiddie classes for a day. You know what? Honestly, we could use the help. He should put him on the the occasional teacher roster. Pick up one of the days. Okay, I think we have answered most of them. I see. What will the reorg look like? Will there be any contracts posted? I mean, retirements have spiked. I had to laugh when the Ontario College of Teachers started sending letters to retired teachers saying that they can reactivate their Ontario College teachers. I think they are missing the point when September rolled around and they have more retirements than they have had in a number of years in any September. I don't think they're coming back to work, but it's worth a shot. We'll wait and see. I mean, it comes down to what contracts exist when teachers leave their job, so you never know. There's always going to be contracts coming out, though. I think that's most of it. Progress reports, business as usual. That's a really, really good question. There, out of all this, there hasn't been much talk about progress reports cards yet. I think that will be the next battle, the next hill. You know darn well that our superiors, our administrators, our ministry will be requesting that everything be hunky-dory, business as usual. But I have no idea how that can happen given the world that we're in. It's more likely I don't know. I mean, people have seen kids come into their classroom. People had 2 more kids added to their classroom this week in distance learning in their own classroom. Kids are coming and going. We're going to be letting the board know that things like teacher appraisals, report cards, progress reports, all those things need to look a little bit different because this is a little bit of a different year and expectations need to change a little bit. Now, that being said, they're the employer, but I do fear that we may be reaching a breaking point. You can only push so hard. Okay, everyone, we're 10 to 8. We didn't quite have an end time, but I think an hour is pretty good. I have a little boy that's waiting for me to read him some bedtime stories, so I'm gonna go do that. OT should support the canceling of EQAO. Absolutely. I can't believe that the government thinks that this is a time to do standardized testing. I mean, the very fact that it's called standardized testing in a non-standard year blows me away. Thanks for joining us. I thank you to the communications officer, Amy Filsinger. I have a suspicion that our PAPR committee had some discussions about this as well. So I appreciate the work that you are doing with the committee and the work that committee is doing. I love getting out and doing this. It is a lot of work though to set up, so I appreciate the people that make this happen. Thank you, everyone. Best of luck, stay safe, and do the best you can. Hang in there.